Good morning, Southeast Minnesota. It's June 24th, 2020, and this is episode 30, Allie. Chugging right along here. Month of June is kind of coming down the home stretch here. GDU-wise, we're progressing good. A lot of corn, as I made travels first part of the week, is fully canopied, and seemed like it took a little longer to get there than we'd like to see, but appears like we're progressing here in a good way, and just excited to see the corn kicking into gear.
Yeah, like I mentioned to you, I'm still continuing to see some of that rapid growth, that kind of neon leaf, which is a good sign. We're keeping that crop moving and unrolling in those cases where it's maybe twisted up a little bit. But GDU-wise, coming out of Preston, Minnesota, if you look at from that 420 planting date, we're sitting at about 777 GDUs. That's plus 68 from the average. So to your point, we really are pushing right along, which is nice to see. I'd say another nice thing over the weekend, we were getting a little dry last week. Really extremely windy, getting dry, and rain totals varied across the area, but I think that nice rain was welcomed in areas and just to keep that crop moving in the right direction.
Yeah, and those rains came really nice. We had a little severe weather, maybe wrist Sunday night, but I don't think it, for most of our viewing area, wasn't too bad. But just a lot of 3, 4, or maybe half inch, 2, 3 different rains, depending on what part of the listening area you're in. But no, we'll take that. And it was nice that we finally got a rain this year that, didn't have a dry stretch followed by a 4 or 5 incher, which was kind of nice. That for the most part, that was a pretty good rain overall. So Allie, kind of the first segment here, we probably just need to work through this here a little bit, kind of talk through it. I know you've maybe heard of some rumblings of it. I've had a couple calls of it, but we've made there's been a few calls where we've kind of got the wrong herbicide on the wrong soybean herbicide platform, and it's getting a little bit muddy in that arena. There's a lot of things going on in the soybean world, but I think, Allie, maybe reviewing this for our listeners might be a good thing.
Yeah, so herbicide-wise, I think you said that well. There's just a lot going on in the bean world right now. We've had a shift or an increase in the conventional side of the business. A lot of folks are getting a little more comfortable with Liberty. And then I think the biggest thing to focus on is probably some folks are planning Extend soybean, some are planning Enlist, and those names are sounding very, very, very similar, which has made it a little difficult, when we're in the heat of the battle, to distinguish what is the difference between each. So maybe in your mind, what are the biggest points that we need to make sure we're keeping top of mind as we make sure the correct herbicide is getting sprayed on the correct traded package?
Yeah, and as a producer, I think it, we need to have good records, but as we get to spring time, it's probably not a bad idea to, call up your seed supplier, your agronomist, just double check. Hey, I'm just getting ready to make a call here on spraying. Just want to make sure, are all my beans the same platform? I know let's just say I have Roundup Ready 2 Extend. I've had a couple growers that, pre-bought all Extend, and then for some reason, maybe picked up a few beans to finish, whether it be from the same supplier or different, and they ended up with some Enlist and didn't realize that, and that's been a challenge. But just reviewing that everything's in the same platform, I think is probably the biggest thing. And from there, the other thing, Allie, we got to really watch too in a year like this if we are spraying, and when you do look at some of the restrictions around Roundup Ready 2 Extend and what is a susceptible crop. You mentioned all these things. Conventional soybeans, we've seen a pretty big increase in demand for those. We've seen a pretty big increase in the amount of straight Liberty Link soybeans, a lot more Enlist E3 soybeans out there. Still maybe some straight glyphosates here and there, but also it's important for you, but also what is, granted, if you're praying Roundup Ready 2 Extend and Extend soybeans next to you, that's not a susceptible crop depending on wind, but there's just a lot of things going on. That communication with your seed supplier, communications with your neighbors and other things are just going to be really important. But just really, we just got to be careful. We still got some spray applications to go. The last thing we want to do is maybe kill a crop at this stage of the game. It's getting late. Replant, we're going to give up a lot of yield. It gets to be a large expense, but we just got to watch it really close. And the other thing, Enlist soybeans and Roundup Ready 2 Extend soybeans, Allie, that's not the same herbicide. If you're spraying the herbicide for one, it kills the other. And maybe just walk us through what we're using on Extend versus Enlist.
Yeah, so I'll start with the Extend side of things because maybe more folks right now would likely have Extend over Enlist. So if you have an Extend, Roundup Ready 2 Extend soybean, you would have tolerance to glyphosate and dicamba. So obviously there's been a lot of talk of that in the industry right now. But if you have that extend, glyphosate and dicamba are your approved traits there. But on the enlist side of things, so like you mentioned, some folks have maybe picked up some more enlist acres this year, starting to make that shift, and we're going to be seeing more and more enlist soybeans as we move into the future. So you're going to see tolerance to 2,4-D choline, glyphosate, and glufosinate. So just, the best you can, like we mentioned, those do sound the same, but those are going to be your differences between enlist and then your extend soybeans in the marketplace.
Yeah, and that seems to be where kind of the most confusion is out there. And like you said too, they can sound kind of similar, and we just got to make sure we're double checking all those things across the board. But yeah, we're kind of getting there on soybean post spraying. Last week was tough, Allie, with the wind and everything else. I think a lot of us wanted to get done. A little bit of rain over the weekend here, but hopefully we get a couple days this week. We can wrap up those post applications before flowering starts in the soybeans. When we come out of break, we'll maybe jump in and talk a little bit alfalfa forages and kind of talk about what's going on in that arena as well.